the most important player that Dan Hurley added to this UConn men's basketball roster in the offseason is not a freshman, he's a transfer.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Oh, and away we go officially post-Labor Day. That means officially summer is over. I'm sorry, but you know what that means? Basketball season just around the corner. My name is Mike MUTNANNSKY, the host here of Locked On UConn and a UConn alumnus. We thank you for watching. We thank you for listening, and hopefully heading into this back half of 2025, football season underway. Basketball starts next month. We can say that now. Hopefully you come to make Locked On UConn your first watch, your first listen every single day. Available free wherever you get your podcast. Available for free on YouTube. Subscribe, would you please? We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Football season, forget around the corner. Football season here. Visit the FanDuel app, start planning your future bets now. On today's episode, the most important addition Dan Hurley made to this UConn team in the offseason. We'll talk about the rest of the new faces you'll see out there wearing UConn uniforms 2025 and 2026, and the importance of the toughest, and I mean toughest, schedule we've seen UConn basketball have in the history of their program. I want to start, though, with the most important player added to this UConn roster. And got to go back for a second and think about how different this offseason is. A year ago, coming off a national title, 4 guys, you lose to the NBA, not a great transfer class coming in, looking back on it, and there was a major depletion of talent going into last season. Feeling the exact opposite this year, where there's a talent influx everywhere you look, especially when you talk about transfers. And as Dan Hurley is reloaded here, there's a lot more talent, in my mind, upgrades across the board on this UConn basketball team that should have expectations much higher than they were a year ago heading into the season. And I started thinking about this in particular because Jeff Goodman's Field of 68 website and product, podcast, show, all of it. I'm a Goodman guy. I've done a bunch of interviews with Jeff for 15 years in Boston, Celtics interviews, college basketball interviews. Like, I like Jeff. I get the sense that a lot of UConn fans don't like Jeff Goodman. I'm a Goodman guy. Maybe I shouldn't say that here on Locked On UConn, but I like Jeff. But they had a Field of 68 graphic in the springtime that had the top 10 teams that were impacted by the transfer portal. And Goodman didn't have UConn. Didn't have UConn as one of the top 10, which is ridiculous. I'm sorry, just wrong. And so a couple weeks ago, again, they did the top 10 players in the transfer portal. I think this was Jeff again. And they didn't have this player listed. And it just got me thinking that maybe he's under the radar. Maybe that I don't view this the way that many UConn fans and outsiders look. But to me, Silas Demary Jr. is the most important player UConn got this offseason. And I would argue he's in the top 1, 2, 3, 5 of important transfer players we saw in college basketball the entire offseason. And we'll start with the player himself, and we're going to go through the roster and some of the different moves that this team has made in the offseason that Dan Hurley has made. For those who don't know Silas Demary Jr., 6'5", 195, point guard out of Georgia. Okay, 2 years with the Bulldogs, all freshmen, his first year there in the SEC. Year 2, all he did was help lead the Bulldogs to their first NCAA tournament appearance since 2015. On the year for Demary, 13 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. He averaged just shy of 40% from 3. But it was the end of the season where the games that are most important, fighting for SEC seeding, fighting for a tournament spot, that he was at his best. Final 10 games of the year, he averaged over 19 points per game. In fact, the final 10 games of the year, he scored double digits in every one of those games. He had 2 or more steals in 6 of the last 7 games there for Georgia. He did everything. You go back and look through the numbers, what the coaches were saying, the analytics, whatever. There were very few guards that were better than Silas Demary Jr. at the end of the year last year in the SEC. So season comes to an end there in Georgia, enters the NBA NBA draft process, decides to withdraw, enters the portal. Kentucky, BYU, Duke, St. John's, all looking at this kid. He ends up signing with UConn. And one of the quotes he had in his first Zoom, I thought stands out is that it speaks to the importance and what he could mean to this team. He said basically, like Tristan Newton, Steph Castle, Shabazz Napier, even Kemba Walker, I want to be one of those names. And the reality is that those names are point guards and stars on championship teams for this UConn team. And I think Silas Demary Jr. can be in that same sort of group as a guy that can lead UConn to a national title. And I think the expectation should be high because they made a major upgrade at that point guard position. So as a player, he's a great landing spot. The program needed Silas Demary Jr., right? Again, Hassan Diarra gets banged up last year. Aiden Mahaney is the transfer guard from St. Mary's, and he flashed a little bit early in the year, but Aiden Mahaney, for whatever reason, did not work out in this program. I thought he'd be a perfect fit for Dan Hurley's system. It didn't work. He's gone off to UC Santa Barbara. Like at one point, like SI.com during the middle of the year for the tournament, they had a story like basically UConn has a point guard crisis. And because Mahaney did not pan out, because Diarra was hurt, because you have much depth after that, like you had to play guys at point guard and point forward basically that should have been playing those positions, right? Alex Caravan is a great player, but they had to keep running the offense through him because point guard was such a weakness for this team. Liam McNeely, right? He had to do a lot with the ball handling. He's terrific, tremendous, but he would have been better served with a point guard distributing the ball to him and not having to run everything through him. And so you played a couple guys out of position because the point guard spot was so weakened a year ago. That made those guys weaker. It also made the job tougher for guys like Solo Ball, who's an elite scorer, but without a true point guard to get in the basketball and sort of lead that team like we saw with Tristan Newton the last couple of years. He couldn't be at his best, and he still had a great year. And so what you end up having is other players playing out of their roles. It affected everyone long term, and you could just tell that Hurley was going to be really aggressive in the offseason in that transfer portal, finding a point guard, and he did. His coach, Silas Demary's coach at Georgia, Mike Wright, said after his freshman year, "I haven't had a freshman any more physically and mentally tougher than him." Like, Silas Demary Jr. is the perfect fit to lead UConn this season on the basketball court. You think about the way the team is set, right? You have Ball, you have Caravan, you have Terrace Reed Jr., who, if you've followed some of the offseason stuff, the expectation's sky high for him. His development as a player, scrimmages, exhibition stuff early on for the team behind the scenes. Like, I'm hearing a lot about his development. Like, you have some really good players on this roster that can score at a very high level. You have freshmen that are coming in that are going to score and impact this team. What you need, really, simply all you need, tough, physical point guard that can distribute, shoot the three, and make guys around him better. That, seriously, is Silas Demary Jr. Like, if you were going to go into a lab and build a UConn point guard for this team, I think he's that player. And I think he's being slept on right now because there's other big additions for this team. But I feel like as far as impact goes, think about the great teams that UConn has had. They've been led by a physical, tough point guard. We're thinking this morning, like I go back to like Talik Brown and what he meant. And not the scorer, but Ricky Moore before that. Like, this team is at a tough physicality at point guard. Silas Demary Jr. brings that, man. Like, he is going to bring that immediately to this team. He's going to make life easier for the scorers. He's going to make life easier for Dan Hurley. Like, I feel like he is being underrated right now. I don't think enough people are talking about him. When a website is big on college basketball and a brand like Field of 68 is not including him in the top 10, is not including the UconnHuskies as far as the transfer portal goes, as one of the top 10 beneficiaries of guys and additions, like, to me, they're missing the boat. If you're a UConn fan, you've got to recognize you got a major upgrade at point guard. It was not good a year ago. It's going to be much better this year. And Silas Demary Jr. is the perfect guy to lead this UConn team. And I can't wait. We're going to have exhibition games pretty soon. Next month, practices opening up. There was an open gym for some donors this weekend. Like, I fully expect him to be a leader right away, to make things easier. And I think come December, January, February, we're talking about UConn being a national championship contender. We'll be talking about Silas Demary Jr. as a big, big part of that. He is not the only addition to this team. There are a bunch of other additions and new players. I want to talk about the other new players on this UConn team and this roster when we come back. Do not go anywhere. All right, listen up. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. They had this free Trade Master program, right? You're going to score serious perks, priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line when you sign up for free to their Trade Master program. Visit supplyhouse.com right now, sign up for free, and use that promo code SHColleges5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra. You've probably heard of Cialis. I know I have. Maybe you even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rougiette Ready. Rougiette Ready is the next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rougiette's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average, 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. Go check out the real customer reviews on the website, helping a lot of people feel more confident and present in the moment. Head to Rougiette.com/LockedOnCollege. Use the code LockedOnCollege and save 15% off today. Just that simple. RUGIET.com/LockedOnCollege. Use the promo code LockedOnCollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compound drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rougiette website for full safety information. All right, Locked On Podcast listeners, Locked On Podcast viewers, help us out. I'll put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcast even better. Just go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes the survey going to be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Just that simple. Just go there, lockedonpodcast.com/survey for your chance to win one of 10 $100 gift cards. 41 days away from Boston College and UConn exhibition game at the beautiful Mohegan Sun Arena. I have been there quite a bit over the years. I do some work with Mohegan Sun. I cannot wait to be there on the 13th of October to watch this UConn and BC exhibition game. More on the UConn schedule coming up and the importance of this loaded schedule that Dan Hurley and his staff have put together. Silas Demary Jr. is not the only big addition to this roster. And I suspect that if you polled like a general UConn fan base, majority of fans would not say they're most excited for Silas Demary Jr. They would not say he's the most impactful player for this team. They would say Braylon Mullins, the freshman from Indiana, is the guy they're most looking forward to seeing and the guy that they think will have the biggest impact on this team. I'm not going to debate you. I just think they're different roles for this year's team in particular because Braylon Mullins comes in highly touted. Top 20 recruit, no matter where you look. 6'6" guard out of Indiana. Everybody wanted this kid. He ends up at UConn. And by the way, should be the case. If you're a high-level recruit and you're looking to play college basketball for one and done, you're trying to win titles, trying to get exposure, like there's no better program than UConn. So it's no surprise, should be surprised, a UConn fan, that Braylon Mullins out of Indiana chose UConn. Elite scorer. And I referenced Field of 68 earlier. Rob Doster, who's a UConn guy himself. I don't know if he went to UConn, but he certainly is clearly a UConn fan based on his work over the years. Supports the program, has insider knowledge of the program there at the Field of 68. He commented in the offseason that he thought that combination of Solo Ball and Braylon Mullins by the end of the college year might be the best 1-2 shooting combo in all of college basketball. That is ridiculous praise for Braylon Mullins. I don't know if he's going to be that good, but he shot it over 40% in high school. I think every expectation is he comes in here and immediately is a scoring option for this team, an elite scoring option for this team. And as we get closer to the season, we'll start doing deeper dives on the roster. We'll see where guys are playing. I don't know right now whether or not Braylon Mullins is going to start or come off the bench. I thought early in the offseason that the expectation was he might start. I get the sense now, 6 weeks out from this thing's really getting going for this UConn men's basketball team, that it's more likely that Jalen Stewart starts and that you'll have Dan Hurley defer to the veteran and he comes off the bench. But either way, he's going to be an elite scorer for this team. Immediately, he shows up and scores, is a highlight player right away, and takes some pressure off a Solo Ball. When you lose a player like Liam McNeely, you wonder who's going to step in and allow Ball to be, quite frankly, one of the best shooters in college basketball, one of the best scorers in the game. His presence here Demary Jr. setting up at point and Mullins being a second scoring option for this team, like it's going to make things a lot easier for solo ball. So if you think Braylon Mullins is the most impactful player for this team, I get it. You're most excited for him. I understand. Just think a different role for him where he's going to be a scorer and not as much pressure on him. Silas Demary Jr. more of an impact on this team at that point guard position. But you can let us know in the comments here, watching on YouTube, who you're most excited for, most impactful. I think it's Silas Demary Jr. at the point guard position, but if you want to get on there and talk about Braylon Mullins, do that as well. Eric REIBE, the 7-1 center, Germany, the lefty, played prep last year in Maryland, 19 points per game. He's an important guy for this team. I don't know what the depth is going to be like after Terrace Reed Jr., and I think he's going to end up playing a pretty significant role. Is REIBE off the bench for this team 12, 15, 18 minutes when Reed gets in foul trouble? Like, I don't expect him to play 25 minutes a game. I think he's certainly a developmental player, but when you watch his YouTube stuff, like, looks like a super skilled big man that's going to be a huge impact for this team. And with the lack of depth, at least on paper, behind Reed Jr., I think that he's an important guy, playmaker, ball handling skills. Again, I'm trying not to get too sucked into the YouTube highlights, but looks like an impactful player. Role for this team for sure as a freshman. I think it's pretty defined. I don't know the definition for Jacob FURPHY, the Australian freshman, 6'6", 205, 247 sports. Had him ranked as a top 100 prospect, 90 overall, 14 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. I've seen the clips. He looks like an all-around playmaker. He looks athletic. How he fits in with this team, I guess we'll wait and see. But he's part of this now. We'll get to it coming up here in a second. International players just littering the UConn roster, for decades now. And Dan Hurley and his staff done a great job of that. I don't know what his role is going to be, but I think Jacob FURPHY has people excited as a playmaker on this roster and somebody who can be an impact for this team. Maybe not as much in year one as a player like Mullins or REIBE, but as that goes forward in the program, I suspect that he will be someone that we'll be talking about going forward. Jacob Ross, who is a 6'5" freshman, Jaden Ross's brother, depth guy, probably not as a huge impact as a freshman, but somebody that Dan Hurley can rely on as a practice player, somebody to build on going forward, and developmental player for this team. International flavor. One of the biggest stories for this UConn team in the offseason was the guys they got late in the process. And if I butcher the names, I apologize. Okay. Renzon Elazai, because it's supposed to rhyme with lemon pie, is what I've read. So let's say Renzon Elazai, 7'1", Turkey, just turned 18, played on the 19 and under team in Turkey last year, 7 points, 5 rebounds. Again, expectations, I'm not sure how you want to evaluate other than YouTube and what other people have said, but Elazai looks like true 7-footer, rim protector, certainly an alley-oop threat for this offense going forward. And along with Uroš Penović, the other import, this one from Serbia, 8 points per game, played in the top league over in Serbia a year ago. He's 22, so different in the development, but he's got a ton of experience, professional basketball in Serbia, like wearing number 77. Shout out Ray Bork. I'm not sure what the impact is there, but I have no idea what to expect. But I think it speaks to, again, Dan Hurley drawing this international talent. The rosters changed this year in NCAA basketball. 15 roster spots now, and Hurley maxed it out. Good for him. So Elazai, Penović, I don't know how much they'll impact this team right away, but I do give Hurley credit for maximizing his roster, taking advantage, and making UConn and making Storrs, Connecticut a destination for international players. Other transfers, right? Malachi Smith. And I didn't rank these in any sort of order, but redshirt senior from Dayton, was part of that Dayton team that beat UConn a year ago. 10 points, 5 assists, 2 rebounds, tough physical defender, perfect backup point guard to Silas Demary Jr. And when you look at last year's point guard depth, guys who play the most, Diarra and Mahaney, you go from those two to now Demary Jr. and Malachi Smith. That's a huge upgrade at the point guard spot. My guess is that he may not say it out loud. Dan Hurley and his staff, they are much more confident in that position they were a year ago. And Malachi Smith, a big part of that, going to be the true backup point guard on this team. They've added some other, Dwayne Kamara, senior redshirt from Iona, Alec Milliner, 6'1" guard, redshirt senior again, played IU Indiana a year ago. Depth players on this team that can be an impact, and practice players for sure. All this is important because your team's in the mix. The UConn Huskies are in the mix. FanDuel, love FanDuel. Current odds as of Tuesday morning for the NCAA championship. UConn is 17-1. That is the 6th lowest odds in all of college basketball. Purdue, Houston, Duke, Kentucky, Florida, and UConn. So the expectation is you're one of the 5 or 6 teams that's supposed to contend for national championship this year, in part because of how much talent has been now added to this roster in the offseason. And I thought it was noteworthy looking at the odds. Like, it's a little bit different on the women's side, and we'll talk about that later on this week, where there's big favorites. The 12 teams, the top 12, quote unquote, the lowest 12 teams odds-wise to win the title, they're all between 9-1 and 9-1 and 20-1. So there's no huge favorite. There's no significant standout. That's a good thing for UConn. Like, I feel like the tournament this year, and men's basketball in general, it's more wide open than the women's side for sure. And UConn's part of that mix. And I think adding Demary Jr., adding these talented freshmen, like, this roster feels much more complete to compete this year for Dan Hurley. And there's a reason why they have the 6th highest odds, or 6th lowest odds again, to win the NCAA championship. Reason why ESPN in their preseason rankings has them ranked number 4. Speaking of rankings, UConn is playing a bunch of teams that are early on ranked amongst the top 25 because they're playing the toughest schedule they've ever had to at least schedule to start the year for UConn men's basketball. We'll talk about that next year. Do not go anywhere. All right, guys, I mentioned it. NFL season almost here, basically this week. Thursday, Friday, Sunday, Monday, NFL is back. And FanDuel is making sure you're ready with kickoff with can't miss offers. How about this? Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the FanDuel app. I like the FanDuel app because it fits however I'm looking to play a certain game or a certain day. Player props, same game stuff, live bets, all right there on the FanDuel app. So you ready to play? It's this easy. Download the FanDuel app right now. Go to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to get started and place your first $5 bet. College football is indeed back. Watched a lot of college football over the weekend. Could not be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands. Nothing like college football. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself on the field. Endless queues, hidden fees, price jumping at the checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. The easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices. No surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. We all live busy lives. So why use Game Time? It's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way that I bought my tickets over the years. So let's take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, use that promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download the Game Time app today. All right, so UConn is considered one of the handful of teams expected to win a national championship this year. Some teams, when that's the case, they will schedule an easy schedule where they can build up wins, get their ranking, get themselves sort of ease their way into college conference play. The Big East is already going to be a gauntlet, so what does Dan Hurley do? He goes out and builds literally the toughest schedule in the history of UConn college basketball. And I'm going to try to add this. You're watching on YouTube. I apologize. This may not work out the way I want it to work out, but I'm going to try to add the UConn schedule there on the YouTube screen. Just an absolute gauntlet for the UConn Husky men's basketball team. The strongest non-conference schedule in the history of the program. You start with 2 exhibition games. Like, you can, NCAA changed some rules this year, bigger roster sizes, more exhibition games. One at Mohegan, one at the XL Center. They play rival Boston College. I don't like BC. You probably shouldn't either if you're a UConn fan. And Michigan State there in Hartford. 2 good exhibition games to start. You get the 3 New England games, New Haven, UMass Lowell, shout out Pat Duquette, and Columbia. And then you jump right into it. Saturday night, BYU, ready to go at the TD Garden, a great Boston game, right? Checking the date on that. That's going to be Saturday night, November 15th at the Garden, prime time, part of the Hall of Fame series in Boston. BYU, 6th in the ESPN rankings to start the year. Arizona, let's play them 4 days later. Home game there. That's going to be at, I believe Gamble is for that one. You're talking about number 13 in the country there. Bryant, New England game for UConn. Okay, Illinois, home and home set. MSG November 28th. Friday after Turkey Day, Illinois ranked 16th in the early rankings. Oh, let's go to Allen Fieldhouse and play Kansas. They're number 21 in the ESPN rankings. East Texas A&M, Florida, one of the best teams in the country to open the year, number 2 in the ESPN standings, the ESPN rankings, I should say. And then Texas, who was also receiving votes 26 through 30 in the ESPN standings to start the year. They're also there. So unbelievable job by Dan Hurley. Didn't have to do this. Could have made it easy, knowing the Big East would be very, very tough this year for UConn. Okay, we'll schedule everybody. It's good because, for a couple reasons. It's great as a viewer. Like, these are marquee games. You're playing, again, ESPN preseason rankings, the 6th, the 13th, the 16th, the 21st, the 2nd, let's call it the 26th ranked team in Texas to start the year. 6 of your first 12, 13 games against ranked teams for UConn. Tremendous job by Hurley in that spot. It's good for us as viewers. It's good for the team. And I've thought this going back to Jim Calhoun days for this program. They get better as the year goes on. This will help them get prepared for that tough Big East schedule and certainly get them ready. Neutral site, tough opponents, playing anybody. Great to see those games. Preps you for tournament time come March. And then third, like, it's just great for college basketball. They're going to be battling, as college hoops is going to be with the NFL. They're going to be battling with college football. Dan Hurley doesn't have to do this. We won't say this, but it's good for the sport. When marquee teams like UConn are able to play Florida and BYU and Boston and Texas and Illinois, these home and homes, like Kansas and Allen Fieldhouse, it's just good for the sport. He doesn't have to do it. It makes the sport more interesting. You don't have to do this as a college basketball coach. More big-time coaches like Dan Hurley should be doing this. They should be scheduling marquee games. What's the point of Cupcake Central and getting fat on those teams? Your team should be challenged. The biggest team should be, as I try to remove this here on YouTube and get back to the screen here. The biggest teams should play in the biggest games. Good for Dan Hurley. It's going to make them better. It's going to make the sport better. And it's going to put them in a position where come tournament time, they are tested because they are playing so many good teams to start this season. We're going to talk a lot of UConn men's basketball on this show leading into the season, which will start late October, exhibition games, the big Midnight Madness event there. I don't think they call that anymore, but when I was at UConn, they called it that. Plenty of basketball on this show going forward. I want to thank everybody for helping us with the relaunch of Locked On UConn on Monday. It was the first show in, 5 or 6 months here for Locked On UConn. So a lot of people weren't expecting it, then weren't following it on social media. Show was dormant 5 or 6 months. Back as of this week, daily shows. And to answer a question I got a couple times on Monday, people who reached out and cannot thank you enough for people who subscribed, reset their podcast feed, reached out via social media, commented on the YouTube, okay? Are we going to be doing football edition of basketball? 100% yes. I don't know what the previous host did, but as you've noticed here at the start of this week, football episode on Monday, basketball on Tuesday. I'm going to do a ton of football into the basketball season, and then we'll do bonus shows for football. There'll be a point in the football season when basketball and football are both going on. We'll do 5, 6, 7 shows a week. That's just the reality of it. I want this to be your first destination for all things UConn. I want you to be telling your friends, your family, random guys you see on the street, hey, subscribe, rate, review, Locked On UConn. If you're a UConn fan, have to do it. So that's the goal. Plenty of football, and obviously come basketball season, wall-to-wall, all things basketball. You can comment on the show on YouTube. I've opened up the DMs on Twitter at Locked On UConn. You can also email the show, lockedonuconn@gmail.com. Suggestions, input, what we can be doing, what you want to see from this thing going forward here, Locked On UConn, your daily destination for all things UConn. It's another big moment on Locked On. College football fans, Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll on Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year, Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts. A college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season only on Fire TV. Subscribe, rate, and review on YouTube. We thank you so much for watching. We thank you for listening. Back on Wednesday, it is Locked On UConn. Talk to you then.
Go Huskies.